This podcast is sponsored by A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London and Middlesex, both family-owned and operated. By Hyde Park Care Pharmacy. Experience the difference an independent pharmacy can make for you and your loved ones. Hyde Park Care Pharmacy offers personalized care, short wait time, very competitive pricing, easy transfer of your prescription, and much more. And by Molly Maid. During these times of COVID-19, it has never been more important to keep your family safe. With the Healthy Home Cleaning System, Molly Maid London is here to help. Make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you may be listening. We welcome you back to another edition of the Vicars Crossing podcast. The Vicars Crossing is a virtual space where faith intersects with the public square, and so does sports every once in a while. If you've noticed, we got a little hockey theme going on here, right, boys? Looking good.
Yeah.
And that's because we have a special guest today coming into the podcast. Our guest today is former NHL goalie Clint Malaruchuk, formerly the Nordique and the Caps and the Buffalo Sabres. And so we're going to get Clint in just a few minutes as our guest. So
tender.
Yeah. My name is Rob Henderson from Holy Trinity St. Stephen's Anglican Church here in London.
Kevin George, London Knights fan, previously a Windsor Spitfire fans. My apologies to our Windsor listeners, but I'm a homer. So I got to cheer for the home team. And I'm the priest at St. Aidan's Church here in London, Ontario. Who are you?
I'm Ian. That's me. That's who I am. Thanks for listening.
Ian is everything to us.
Ian is all things.
Yes.
And and we're glad everybody's back again. This is going to be an exciting show for us and to talk to Clint, and not just about hockey, but about his life story and some of the work he's doing now with those that are suffering from mental illness and depression and those types of things. He's been doing some amazing transformative work over these past years. So we'll catch up with him in just a minute. I want to say hi to our sponsors here at the Vicars Crossing, as always, to A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London Middlesex, both family owned and operated. And a hi to Dave Mullen and the whole staff out at A. Miller George.
Yeah, they're good people.
They are good people.
I was in the pharmacy today. Sadly,
Congratulations.
Sadly, the gout is back.
Oh, no, not the goat.
I don't like the gout.
Not the goat.
I haven't had gout in about 4 or 5 years, but it's back today.
Do I have to sing you that Tears for Fears song again whenever you get the gout? Gout. Get it all out.
Yeah. So Benjamin Franklin, by the way, said that gout is the result of red wine, red meat, and too many women.
Well, not even close.
I'm just saying that's what Ben Franklin said about gout.
There ain't no gout coming into this boy's room, I'll tell you that.
I don't know why I have gout, but that's what Benjamin Franklin says about gout. But anyway, Carol is working on getting me some meds to look after that. Carol Basada from Hyde Park Care Pharmacy here in the neighborhood. It's locally owned, locally operated, locally loved. If you want to support an independent pharmacy and get the best care you're going to get from a pharmacist in the London area, you give Carol a call today.
Absolutely. Also, we want to send a special thanks to Molly Maid London. Make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today. Our family is actually considering giving them a call sometime soon to get a little bit of tidying up done around our house. So we want to say a special thank you to Tricia Lister for that too.
Right, they're going to be coming into that room of yours.
They're going to clean up that talk. Is that a hazmat area you're
Hold on. I didn't come here to be attacked.
Oh, get comfortable, buddy.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
This is the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get on.
Is gout a sickness or a sud?
That's a good question. I'll throw that into the next episode to see if we can't figure that one out.
Yeah.
Well, that might be a little easy, though. But let's try a little more difficult one, shall we, boys? It's time now for, on the Vicars Crossing, one of our favorite new segments. It's called Sickness or Suds. All right.
Oh,
So, sickness or suds, I will give you a name. You identify whether it is an actual sickness or is it a beer.
okay. All right,
Okay.
let's hear it.
So our word today is Kawasaki.
Ooh.
Kawasaki, not a motorbike. This is not
You ever
sickness,
heard a
suds, or
comedian?
motorbike.
You ever heard a comedian who says that motorcycles sound like their name, and he's got one that, like you said, if it's a Honda, it's like Honda when it goes by, and then he says Kawasaki, Kawasaki.
That's his whole bit?
That's his whole bit. Yeah,
That's it. All right.
Kawasaki.
Kawasaki. So what do you think,
Kawasaki.
Ian? Is it a sickness or a sud?
I think it's a sud.
It's not. It's a sickness. It's a Kawasaki disease is a real sickness.
Well, you're pretty sure
Confident?
yourself, Kevin. Jeez, he just knocked you into the side of the head and said, "No way." No.
Ian, you're full of shit. It's not a beer. It's a sickness. Stop it.
Okay, well,
Please
Just
tell
stop
me
it.
I'm right.
Just
Can
stop
you-
it.
Rob, if I'm right, I will be the happiest man alive.
well, you're going to have a miserable life, my friend.
Damn it.
Because Kevin is right. Kawasaki is a disease.
Yes.
It's actually of unknown cause. They don't really know what causes
right.
it. It mostly affects young children.
That's right.
But
And it's relative to what's
yeah.
going on right now.
Yeah, right. Manifests as a really high fever and that sort of thing. And
Interesting.
Kawasaki.
So one of the after effects that they're noticing in children after having COVID is Kawasaki effect.
Okay.
And so they've been trying to get to the bottom of what that's all about. That's the only reason I know this is because CNN is on in my house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
That's actually really interesting. Cool.
Okay,
I didn't
so
know.
there you go, Kawasaki.
Yep.
That's
Kawasaki.
sickness or suds. It's time now for
Ask anything.
All right, Ian. The question today comes to us from Buffalo, New York.
Wow.
Go Sabres.
Go Sabres. And this is a hockey-related question.
Awesome.
And the question is, are you familiar with the Buffalo Sabres? And if you are, who is your favorite Buffalo Sabre of all time?
I am familiar with the Buffalo Sabres. Not the entire roster, but I am familiar with them. I think my favorite Buffalo Sabre is PK Subban because he used to be a Toronto player and they got traded and he was like still really, really good on both teams. So
you are really way off.
You're off.
is he on the wrong team? Hold on.
PK Subban played for Montreal and got traded to Nashville and then to New Jersey.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh, see, I got
Sorry.
the colors mixed up. because they're
So
both
Phil-
yellow.
Phil in Buffalo. I'm sorry, but Ian
Man.
doesn't know much about the Buffalo Sabres.
I actually don't know much about the Buffalo Sabres.
You could have gone. You could have gone with Clint Malarchuk. That would have worked.
That would have worked.
Shit!
Yeah.
Shit!
Yeah. So that's it. You're out. I'm going to Robbie
You're
now. Rob, you remember the Buffalo Sabres of all
Of
the years?
course I
past?
do.
So
Well, the one that sticks out in my mind mostly, and I know Clint will appreciate this, is another goalie because later this Buffalo goalie ended up winning a Stanley Cup with the Detroit Red Wings.
that's true.
Dominic Hasek.
Okay, so that would have been your favorite Sabre of all time.
Dominic Hasek. I was a big fan of Dominic Hasek. Yeah.
All right.
Wow, I got that really wrong. Kevin,
you
who's
did.
your favorite Buffalo Sabre?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So my favorite was Gilbert Perreault.
Ah,
And Gilbert Perreault, when I was a little guy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, my godmother, a woman named Donna Murin, made a trip to, I don't know, she went to America. She could have been anywhere. It may have probably been Florida. I don't know where she went, but when she came back, she brought me back a hockey sweater. And the hockey sweater was that royal blue, which is coming back this year in Buffalo, by the way. They're going back to the royal blue. They had switched blues to a navy. They're going back to royal blue. It was the royal blue Buffalo Sabres jersey with the buffalo on the front, and the name on the back was Gilbert Perreault, who is a Hall of Famer, part of the French Connection. Just a great hockey player and a great day. Of course, they have many greats in Buffalo. Pat LaFontaine,
well, I was
Pierre
going to say that
Turgeon.
the best name of the Buffalo Sabres of an announcer ever using a name in hockey was LaFontaine, because
Oh, yeah.
you remember when he scored that great goal,
Yeah.
and it was La 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 Fontaine.
Yeah. And
That
the
was
other one,
fantastic.
what was that announcer's name? We should have asked. We should ask
jeepers,
Clint.
I don't know.
We should
I
ask
can't
Clint.
remember.
But
Yeah.
the because the other one that he had was Rob Mayday. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Bob May would score a goal, and when he would score a goal, he said, "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday." So, they had some classics. Sadly, have never won a cup. They've got great young players now, and Jack Eichel and others. Who knows what'll happen? But anyway, what we do know is at the moment, PK Subban does not play for the Buffalo Sabres.
But
Has he ever played for the Buffalo
He
Sabres?
has never played for the
Wow.
Buffalo Sabres.
Okay, you know why?
In Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay, here's why. Because one of the things I'm doing currently, because Buffalo Sabres has a yellow jersey. Am I correct on that?
Well, they did
yellow
have
in it.
a third jersey a couple of years ago that was yellow, but their jersey is mostly blue and gold. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm getting the color like because so is
You're in college, man.
Yeah, that's why. And then what I'm doing currently is because the finals are Dallas and Tampa Bay, I'm squinting my eyes so Tampa Bay's blue and white looks like Toronto, so I can pretend that Toronto's playing the Stanley Cup.
Oh, well,
Okay.
and that'll pretty much be the rest of your life, by the way.
I think
pretending that Toronto's in the
which
States.
football team looks like the Lions, because we need to start doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think if I see properly here on my computer that Clint's trying to get into our room, is he?
We should let him. We should let him in.
So
I hear
let's
knocking.
find Clint. And here he is into the Zoom room. Clint Malaruchuk is our guest on the Vicars Crossing today. Clint, we want to welcome you. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing even better now that I know there was a Newfie on the call here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
George is from Newfoundland.
That settled it all right there.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. We didn't tell you that before because we were a little worried. So
Well,
but I'm glad you're okay with it.
Like I said, I haven't met a Newfie I didn't fall in love with. People.
Well, that's great. Well, we're so glad you could be with us, Clint. We've got lots to talk about today. Kevin and I have been kind of fanboying about this date because we looking forward to having you on, being big hockey fans and watching you. And certainly that era of hockey was important to us, you know, when we were in our teens and 20s. And so it's great to have you on board. Kevin, would you give a formal introduction to Clint? I know most of our listeners know who he is, but please do that.
I will indeed. And because he mentioned the Newfoundlanders, I can say to him, the reason he knows so many Newfoundlanders, of course, is he's originally from Grand Prairie. And I think that area is Newfoundland's largest outport, at least Fort McMurray is anyway. So it's full of Newfoundlanders. I think it's fair to say that there's no job in sports more intimidating or exhilarating or as stress-ridden as that of an NHL hockey goaltender. And we've got one here with us today. Imagine doing that job while suffering now high anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, and having your career literally cut short by a skate slicing across your neck. We got Clint here, and we know that he shares his extraordinary and heart-wrenching story around North America, or at least pre-COVID he was anyway, all over the place, helping others who struggle with mental illness get through what they need to get through. So he talks about his long battle with alcoholism and almost ending his life by a gunshot to the head, and his relentless effort to help stop and end the stigma of mental illness is a great help to all of us. Clint was born in Grand Prairie, as I said, raised in Edmonton, played junior hockey in the Western Hockey League with the Portland Winterhawks, I think. Yep. And he went on to play professionally in the NHL for the Nordique, the Washington Capitals, and the Buffalo Sabres, and in the IHL in Las Vegas with the Thunder. Clint compiled a career record of 141 wins, 130 losses, 45 ties, 12 shutouts, with an .885 save percentage. And before you get too excited about those numbers, you youngsters today, this was a different era. We're talking about Gretzky getting 240 points a season. Okay, so this is not. Don't get excited about .885 and say, oh, so he was the shits. No, he was not the shits. He was a good goalie. Okay, that was a good save percentage. So after leaving the NHL as a player, Clint served as a head coach of the IHL Las Vegas Thunder and the Idaho Steelheads. He was a goaltending coach in the NHL for Florida, for the Panthers, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. He became a consultant for the Atlanta Thrashers in 2010, going from there to the Flames, Calgary, and retiring from the team in 2014. His memoir, this beautiful book, The Crazy Game, How I Survived the Crease and Beyond, was published in 2014. And honestly, this is a fantastic book for people to read. Not just, you don't need to be a sports fan to read this. This is a story of resiliency, of perseverance, of pain and suffering, of vulnerability and heart, and of a willingness to actually share in order to help others. We love the book. We love you, Clint. And we're so glad that you came on to do this for us today. Welcome to the Vicars Crossing.
Thank you. This is a real honor for me.
Yeah, well, our little shtick here as a couple of clergy and an intelligent teenager is is to talk about the intersectionality of faith in the public square. And certainly one of the things that comes up regularly is mental illness and mental health, and how we are to address all of that. Your story is remarkable. I mean, to say that the book is incredible, it fails really to give it a proper description. Making the NHL, having 11 seasons in the big league. I think you were an all-star one of those seasons. You had a great career. Every Canadian kid, we all dream of that, don't we? We all want to, whether you're playing ball hockey in the street or on the ponds, the big idea is to get there. And it's no small feat. But that journey and the pressure of that journey, it all came with a cost. And that cost weighed very heavy on you, Clint. And so as impressive to me as you getting to the big leagues is, when I read the book, I'm even more impressed with you as an honest, open, vulnerable man that you've become. You really bare your soul in this book, and it's ugly. I mean, there are things in your life that it's hard to share, and you've shared it. And Dan Robson, who helped you with this, what an incredible guy. He's a great writer. So with that in mind, I wonder if we could ask you to start by talking about the work you're doing today. I know before we started recording here, you were talking about some of the things that you might have coming up, but I know that pre-COVID, you were on the road a lot, and not just promoting the book, but sharing your story. You're a mental health advocate. Tell us about that, why you do it, and what you're learning from this new vocation as you meet and encounter others whose story has been shared with you, no doubt. So if you could start us off there.
Well, for me, my passion, that what drives me, I guess, is that, I've almost died 3 times. And the last one was a suicide attempt. And to wake up alive and really thinking about why am I still here, gave me a lot of really opened my mind and my heart. And I always say, I think God spared me for those that are still suffering. And so my journey now is to help people in, suffering in silence, in darkness, like I did, trying to get rid of the stigma. And Michael Landsberg coined that phrase, sick, not weak. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people thinks it's a weakness, and it's not, it's an illness. Yeah. And, after my incident, cutting my neck in Buffalo and almost dying, I really developed PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I started to relate to a lot of veterans, speaking at military bases across Canada and the US, and making a lot of friends. I'm involved with what they call USA Warriors. It's a branch off of Wounded Warriors, and it's players that play hockey. Some are beginners and everything. We have tournaments. I'm a big part of that, and promoting and coaching. And some are in the sled hockey, some are in the standing program, as we call it. And right now my project is Barry Beck reached out to me, an old rugged defenseman. You guys would know him because you're old.
Yeah, yeah, you got it.
And we had a player that was struggling deeply with mental illness. In fact, he was in a United States facility, a lockdown. And I'd never met the guy, but you guys would know the name. I don't want to mention it right now. It is public. It's in the papers. He played in the U.S. Olympic gold medal in 1980, Miracle on Ice, and so Barry had a brainstorm of starting a retreat for struggling hockey players, mostly veterans, retired. But that's when a lot of these illnesses hit us.
Sure.
The concussion syndromes, which causes CTE, but with that you get depression, anxiety, you get mental illness basically. And so we're trying to start a retreat. And I've been really working hard on that, where former players, and I also said, well, we got to include the military, because we love our military, and what they do for us. And if you don't, well, something's wrong, because they do so much for our freedom in the U.S. and in Canada. So we're going to open it up to veterans, military veterans, and hockey veterans, and even hockey players that are just struggling and still playing. It'll be a retreat where there'll be, meditation, prayer, yoga, bonfires, horse riding, fly fishing,
Mm.
kayaking. So we wanted to, and we're going to have counseling, obviously, and healing, a wellness facility. It'll be in the country somewhere, where we have access to all those things that we need. I've got the horses already lined up. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that's in the making, and so I'm very passionate about it. There were so many times in my journey that I struggled so deeply. I mean, to almost die by suicide. You're in a dark spot, and
Right.
I'd been there for years, off and on for years and years. And
Mhm.
as you mentioned in my book, I don't do anything halfway. So I was very open and honest and raw. I mean, I even told about my insecurities and things. And a lot of men reached out to me and say, "Wow, I deal with the same thing." So I didn't. I thought there's a lot of people that struggle with mental illness, like I do, PTSD and things like that. But because of the stigma, we do it in silence. We think there's shame and
right.
and there's guilt. So I try to talk about getting rid of that. It doesn't matter how tough you are.
Right.
You can be stricken with mental illness very, very easily.
Yeah. I just think as I hear you say that just even having you say that is helpful to somebody else, right? I mean, that's part of the battle. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, I was gonna echo that too, and it's the speaking out that gives people a sense that they can perhaps talk about what they've been going through. Because when you're suffering in silence, like you say, Clint, like when you're in silence, how do you? That was what I was thinking about. People that suffer in silence, how do you make that connection? Because oftentimes they're not talking to anybody, right?
Well, I think for me, the book, obviously, it's been out for quite a while now, so the emails have kind of slowed down a bit. But
Yeah.
when it first came out, I was getting slammed with emails. I put my email in the book on purpose because I
Yeah.
knew people might relate.
Yeah.
But I had no idea how many Clint Malaruchuks are out there. I thought I was
Mm.
the only one. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But I'm the worst one. No, I'm not. There's
Oh, no.
a ton of people.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people totally related. When I speak at a convention or an event or that, the people that come up in tears and hugs and going, for the first time they heard somebody that just threw it out there.
Yeah.
And like I said, with the book and my speaking, I don't go halfway. Even
No.
I don't do anything halfway. Even drinking.
Yeah.
Don't have a
Yeah.
single
You did
drinking.
that well too. Yeah. But 30 cans a day is pretty good.
Yeah, but that's American beer. I'm
Okay.
Canadian.
Yeah, that's right.
So tell me, as you say that though, like, I mean, hearing other people's feedback and people telling you, does that provide, does that prove helpful for you as well?
Well,
Like hearing someone else come back with you with their own story that's relatable, does it help you as well?
A lot of people ask me, was writing the book therapeutic? No, it was not, because I was opening up kind of halfway and maybe whole healed wounds, but I was opening up again. So that was awful. That was, but once the book was out and I started getting feedback and with the public speaking, that's what's therapeutic for me now.
Right. Interesting.
Is hearing the people's stories and knowing that maybe I caused them to take that first step to reach out and get help, whether it's a counselor, psychologist, or a psychiatrist, or going to a treatment center.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Kevin and I were talking before you came on, reminiscing about some hockey memories, and he and I grew up certainly in that era when we watched you played, and we remember that game in March of 1989 when your accident happened. And I think there's a whole generation of guys like Kevin and I that were sitting around a pub and we're talking, and as soon as your name comes up, they automatically know, about that and what happened. In February 2008, Richard Zednick had a similar accident. And you write in the book about Zednick's incident opening up some of your own wounds about that time and that day. You were introduced to a new generation as you started getting calls for interviews, as you mentioned before. And there's people, I think, maybe like Ian or his generation of hockey fans who don't know really what you went through. I'm wondering if you could kind of walk us through just really how close were you to dying that night and really how it affected you and how you moved forward from that.
Well, first of all, I was traded to Buffalo, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks or a month before that. And I just got on a roll. I was in the zone and just playing great. But, being kind of a new guy, I didn't know a lot of players. And there was a priest that would show up at our games and practices once in a while. And that, I'll lead up to that, is when I cut my jugular vein, I prepared for death. I mean, I saw that blood pouring. I knew it was a main artery. And I read somewhere, heard that you only got minutes to live, 2 or 3 minutes maybe. And so I got up and skated off the ice. And a lot of people think that was very courageous. No, I did it because I didn't want my mom to see me die on ice. So my mindset was death. And Clint, you got a couple minutes. You got a lot of repenting to do in 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
So I asked one of the trainers to call my mom, tell her I love her. And, then I asked for the team priest, and he wasn't at that game. So I asked another trainer to hold my hand, and I just felt like I'm going to pass out here from lack of blood and I'll never wake up again. So that, dramatic incidents or traumatic incidents like that, they set off everything in your body. It's called, now they call it PTSD. Back then they didn't even have a set of words for it. And I had no counseling. I didn't think of it. The team, I didn't think of it. The counseling was me and Jim Pizzatelli, our medical trainer, went out and stood in front of the goal in our street clothes and kind of looked around. And he was the guy that saved my life. He was a Vietnam medic before getting into hockey. Anyways, he kind of looked at me and I looked at him. He goes, "Yep, this is where it happened." Yep. We gave the bump. That was it. That was my counseling. And
gives you the touchy feelies.
Yeah, but I came back in 10 days and played because I thought it was the right thing to do. Get back on the horse as soon as you can. Sure. And it's just the mentality I think we had back then. And me being a cowboy, I really had that mentality. Right. And I just thought it was the right thing to do. And whether it was or wasn't, I don't know if I'd do that again, but I definitely should have had some therapy or counseling and guidance. I mean, I was advised, don't come back, retire, take the season off. And I was like, no. That's not my mindset.
Yeah, I think like reading the book, there's a physical element to this as well, right? I mean, it's physically, you've had all that blood drained out of you. I mean, normally people would take time to build that back up.
Well, it was well into the summer, like maybe the end of July, where I started to feel my strength again. So yeah, that blood loss in March. So that took some time, but it's physical. Trauma like that is physical. It's mental. Yeah. It's emotional. It's spiritual. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting, emotional. Just yeah.
And one of the things that I found my own heart breaking as I read it was. That thing about your mom, I mean, honestly, it broke my heart. It's like the thought of that, both for her and for you, and how painful that had to be, but also just the pressure to sort of show up afterwards. Like, there was that game where you stood in the tunnel, and gave a wave to everybody, but that was very briefly after, wasn't it? I mean, in terms of your own mental well-being, yeah. I just feel like that's a heartbreaking thing for you to have to do.
That when I went out, they asked me if I hadn't dressed yet. I was only a few days out of the hospital, and they said, "We want to introduce you to show you to the crowd and let them," because there was so much love and support and care, worry about Clint Malaruchuk in Buffalo.
Yes,
I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So stoppage in play. I think it was the second period. They opened up the Zamboni doors, and I kind of stepped out, and I got a roaring standing ovation.
Of course.
And I almost passed out.
Yeah.
I was weak from loss of blood, obviously, but this was so emotional.
Yeah.
I was shaking, and I thought, don't pass out now. They want to see this.
Everybody watching.
Defeat the purpose.
Yeah. But I got to say that reading that, I just felt that was a lot to ask of a guy who just came within a millimeter of his life. Time, and again, you're right. There's a hockey mentality. There's a cowboy mentality. There's a male mentality to the whole thing too. And, I just think that we're only a couple of weeks now from Mental Health Awareness Month in October. It's coming up. It's really moving to hear to read your writing about trauma and what it did to you, that post-traumatic stress. And of course you write about your own struggles with mental illness before you ever got to that, and with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. But in terms of the trauma and the pressure, how hard it was to ask for help. It was difficult, the anguish. You write about that in Buffalo. You tell the story of how in the middle of all that, you took a handful of pills that you were prescribed and a bottle of whiskey one night while you were still playing, causing your heart to stop. This is the second time within a very short period of time that you're nearly gone. And we know the rest of the story, which is to say, as life goes on and things continue to sort of spiral. In 2017, coming up on the anniversary of that, now that was in October, you try to end the pain by shooting yourself. When it comes to mental illness, many people don't understand the pain and the anguish that goes along with that. You write in the book about dropping to your knees and saying, God, fix me or take me. It's just very painful. The pain is real. You write, this is what you write: I'd rather have a broken femur or a broken back, any physical pain, than that depression. Clinical depression is just, I asked God to take me, kill me. I didn't have the balls to do it myself, but feeling the way I did, I didn't even want to live. A lot of people, Clint, don't understand that. I know in people in my own life that I've been close to who've had to deal with a family member who's died by suicide, find themselves saying, well, why did they do it? What a selfish act, all that sort of stuff that people say. And they don't understand the pain that somebody is in when they get to that point in their life. I wonder, can you talk a little bit about that pain and that anguish so that we can try and help people understand in some way that when people get to that place, and again, it's what Landsberg is saying about sick, not weak. It's not as though somebody wants to hurt anybody or cause anybody else any pain. It's just the pain that they're suffering, that you were suffering, was so incredibly intense. Can you talk about that?
Well, first of all, I do know, because of what I do and meet people, I do meet a lot of suicide survivors. And, I haven't met one yet that, weren't grateful that didn't succeed, me included.
Right.
And the pain, yeah, and I've had physical pain, so I'm not downplaying physical pain. I've had many surgeries. I've had back surgery, neck surgery, broken bones. And so I can compare it because with the mental anguish in that, then yes, when I put that gun to my head and pulled the trigger, I really didn't want to die, but I was in such a bad state. I just wanted to kill the pain. And with mental illness, a lot of times we get to a point where we're not even thinking straight. And a lot of us, most of us self-medicate because it works. And that's a shame. What 2 beers would do, then it's 4 beers, then 8 beers. And it becomes a secondary problem.
Right.
And that's why people with addiction or mental illness end up being tied into addiction too. There's a huge correlation. Yeah. But that pain was, and I was always a God-fearing young man and loved God. And there was times, well, not many times, I said, God, why are you doing this to me? Mm-hmm. You blessed me with skill to play hockey and ride broncs and play baseball. And yet it's like you're teasing me because I'm so depressed and I got this anxiety, and then this OCD was over the top.
Right.
And now I used to question God all the time. So I guess my journey, I had a parallel of some success, the NHL mostly, playing and coaching. And always, most of that time, suffering to some degree of mental illness and anguish, and doing it in silence. And then the accident caused the PTSD, which caused my mental illness, which is undiagnosed, to really explode. And so I getting to the point, God, why are you doing this to me? Why? Take me or take this, because I can't do this. And now I totally understand that line of somewhat success, but also this line of demons of mental illness and PTSD, anxiety, depression, OCD. And now I know why God made me go through that. Mm. And God only gives us so much, what we can handle. I used to say, well, quit trusting me so damn much. Yeah. But now I know those 2 lines. Now I'm at the top of it. Is I had to go through that pain to relate to people who are now suffering in the darkness and dark, the silent, dark place. I totally, and as much as I still struggle, but not mightily like I used to. I have bad days, probably like everyone. But, now I got tools. I've had therapy. I've healed. So I use my tools, to be healthy as I can and to be there and help people. I don't want to forget how deep and dark and painful of a place that I was in. And as you said, I describe it pretty detailed in my book. Yeah. Sometimes it's painful to think about those things and even talk about them, but I believe God put me through them for a reason, and he gave me the NHL as a platform. Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? I came to a point, and now I know why. And I know we all question God when we're suffering and or have loved ones that, cancer or dying or whatever it might be. And sometimes, the famine and the world problems we have, and we question it. but he works in mysterious ways. I'm grateful that I got to live and figure mine out.
Well, I just think it was an incredible example reading your book of lament. Like the psalmist is really good at lamenting. My God, why have you forsaken me in Psalm 22, and I just found that, there was, your willingness to say, take me or fix me, like it's a real honest cry. So I'm just trying to get that help from others. Ian, I think, has a question about that.
Yeah, to I guess build off of that. In the book, you write about the importance of reaching out. You name a few people who've helped along the way, but one of the one that really stands out, and I might get his last name wrong, but is Rick Dudley.
Yeah, sounded
Okay,
out.
cool.
You're a college student.
Yeah.
A total burn from Clint Malaruchuk here. Where's our sound effects? Well done, Clint. You're a college student, for God's sakes. Spell it out. Sound it out. It's Dudley.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rick was phenomenal, and he still is. I talk to Rick frequently. There's a couple other people that really. But the amazing thing, and Rick played in the NHL. We were teammates in the minors, and then he went on. I played for him in Buffalo. He coached. He was a GM. I was a goalie coach under. So he always kind of hired me because he knew how hard that OCD, how hard I'd work.
Right.
But it's funny thing about Rick, and we talked about this, Rick and I. He's never really had any like, he doesn't know why. And trust me, I'm not the only guy he runs to it and helps. He's helped many players. In fact, he'll call me because he doesn't know what to say to a guy, and he'll say, would you mind talking to this player confidentially and everything? Anyways, Rick, he's got a lot of empathy, and he doesn't know why. Usually you have to gone through something to be to relate to that person who's struggling, like I do now. Like, I've gone through it, so I do know that pain. And Rick doesn't, he came to my aid. I was on a gravel road one time, and I had a gun with me, and I talked to Rick about it, and before you know it, he's on an airplane. He was a GM in Chicago, assistant GM, and you know what? He comes to my ranch, and he dropped everything as an NHL executive to help me. And he checks in on me quite a bit, asks me, you're sober. How are you and your wife doing? He's just a wonderful. He's an elite man, a very elite person in a high pressure, kind of a cutthroat business, if I will.
Right, yeah.
Easy now.
Of hockey. He's not that type of person at all. He's helped a lot of people.
Right. And that's one of the things I'm sure you've maybe experienced this, Clint, is that when you're going through that darkness that you talk about, you might not have the ability to see that there actually are other people around you that can be supports, right? And that's why it's so important for someone like yourself and those that advocate for mental illness, and helping people, is be able to point them out, right? Because like you say, he might not have been one that Dudley might not have been one that you thought about because he hadn't been through the same thing, but there are people around us that can offer support.
Well, but the thing is, still with mental illness, that stigma, let's say if you got cancer, you go to your boss, I got to take treatment. What does your boss say? Oh my God, work at home, take time off, whatever we can do to help you. But if you got mental illness, first of all, you're probably not going to go to your boss because of the stigma. You're afraid, you might get fired, or they're not going to understand, or you're weak, which you're not. You're sick. So I mean, we still got a long ways to go on that stigma.
Right. Exactly. That's huge.
And sometimes it just builds on top of each other. Like, you don't want to go to your boss, and then that will have another issue on that because you're like trying to hide it, and then it just builds on top of each other on that. So
so many people do that. So
many.
Well, you mentioned a number of guys in the book. Like I said, for Rob and I being fans through that era, like you got traded with Dale Hunter from the Nordique to the Capitals, and so I wore the Knights gear today, Dale. If you're out there listening here in London, because we have one of your old buddies, Clint, on here. So I don't know if you had a word about Dale or not. A story about Dale.
Dale and I went to. I mean, we played together in Quebec. We were roommates. We were cellmates. I mean, we did everything. We did everything together. Yeah. And when we got traded together again, our journey continued. And I spoke in London, I don't know, about 4 years ago, and Dale and his dad, who I know the whole family, and they came, and it was a fancy suit tie thing, really nice banquet type deal. And old Dicker, his dad, comes in and he goes, "Hey, Malaruchuk," and I kind of like that. And then he does the wraparound, grabs my ball. That's a fancy deal. That's a hunter, and
the hunter.
now I know where Dale gets it from.
Yeah.
His dad's a real character,
That's great.
Dale was quite a joker, I guess, eh?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of joke. We got in a lot of trouble together, but it was mostly harmless, prank.
Oh yeah.
A lot of innocent pranks and things like that. And I was a rookie. He was 1 year ahead of me, so my rookie year, rooming with him and everything, he kind of that jocular. I got lack of a better word, hazing. Rookie do this, rookie do that. So we had so much fun. I remember one time on an airplane, Dale goes, "Hey, rookie, give me a Coke." So I get up and, well, first, you know what we do? I would do everything Dale did. He'd kick his shoes off, get on the plane, kick his shoes off. So I'm like, oh, I pulled my cowboy boots off. And Dale would do something like, spit in my boot or something. Silly. So this one trip, he goes, he does that, spits in my boot, and he give me a Coke. So I go to the flight attendant, say, "Hey, Dale wants a Coke." "Okay, here, Dale." And I said, "Dale, you know what? The season's almost over. I'm almost a veteran. We should maybe treat me a little more respectful, huh?" "Well, I've already got talking about you, rookie." And that's how he kind of was. He was always gruff. And I said, "What?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you spitting in my boot and me pissing in your Coke, it's just not."
Plus, he's world renowned for his wardrobe too.
Oh God, we go on road trips. We might go on a road trip for a week, and he'd bring a toothbrush and give it to me. Say, "Put that in your bag. Put that in your bag." Yeah. Or maybe one pair of shorts. He'd pull it out of his suit pocket and.
It's a great story. That's good stuff. I want to get back to the book for a sec, Clint, before we wrap up our time today, because I think there's a real subtle, but a real thread that's gripping through this book, and it is about faith. And we've talked a little bit about it today so far. You mentioned in the book that you were amazed by the idea of God, that you always felt you needed help, wondering why you were like you were and whether other people were like you. And you write this in the book: "God seems like a good idea to lean on. My relationship with God was always very personal. I never felt the need to actually go to church, but I'd pray every night and in the morning. I'd pray during the day when I was stressed. I prayed my whole life." And one of the verses you leaned on was from Philippians, which is, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." You have no doubt cried out to God in anguish many times, and you've pointed to some of those times in your life. Can you talk a little bit about how faith has helped you on this road and why it's so important to you?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I prayed a lot. I think that might even been part of my OCD as a kid. My dad was an abusive alcoholic. I lived with anxiety, and so I felt so alone that God was almost like a natural for me. I needed something, and the turmoil in the house and everything that was going on, I could go to my room and pray. And one of the things I do now, and this is interesting in my spiritual journey, is I do meditation. And because a lot of times I'll say the Lord's Prayer, and I think there's people that can relate to this. We know it off by heart, and we start saying it, and we're not even thinking about the words or anything. We're thinking about something else, and that's human nature. And so now when I meditate, I don't say words, but I connect with God, kind of a visualization. And like I always say this, if you're having a bad day, you've lost your connection with God. Yeah. So take 10 minutes, that anxiety or whatever, the boss or whatever is going on, take 10 minutes and do a little meditation, get connected with God, and then you got your help. He'll get you through it, because we can't do this life thing alone. At least I can't.
No.
He's been with me ever since I was a little boy. And, the pressures in hockey, I prayed a lot for reassurance. I was an insecure person, very, very insecure. And so I think with that insecurity, I needed God more than most. I felt different as a kid because I really felt like I was always praying as a kid. And I think it was because of the anxiety and the OCD. And I've carried that. I've carried, like I said, I've had my fights with them. You know,
Sure.
saying,
Yeah.
you know, why are you doing this to me? Why are you putting
Yeah.
this in my life? And now I understand completely with my journey. But yeah, I don't know. Even in those dark times, I always prayed. That was somewhat comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was glad to
You-
hear you say that too, because it's you know, any form of healing or return to wholeness is this understanding that we're not on an island on our own, right? Like you say, it's you don't do this by yourself. And in those times when you feel isolated, you're not, if you can meditate or pray or whatever it is your thing is, to connect with God or that moreness somehow.
It's funny too in life how many people, and you guys would know this more than anybody, how many people go through life. I don't want to say godless, but not really. He's not a big part of their life.
Mhm.
And when they're at the end of their journey, they call for somebody to pray for them and forgive them, and they find God real quick. Then, well, I had God, but I really got spiritual,
Yeah.
you know, when I was almost dying on the ice.
and I bet like that, you know, like I said, I can't even like it's funny because I was a young man, like I was 18 years old, 19 years old when that happened
Oh,
to you.
so
And,
you probably had hair then.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Now I've been burned. Now listen here. If you don't say something to Rob before this is over, Clint, I'm coming to Nevada to find you. I swear to God.
Well, those Red Wings are on fire, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
there
good.
we go,
That's
man.
good.
There we
Now
go.
listen, speaking of finding God, I gotta say it's important for me to say this, and I'd like for you to pass it on. Your wife Joni
Mhm.
is a saint.
I wrote that in my book. I
You-
dedicated the book to my mom and my Saint Joan.
both incredible women from everything you've said in this book. But I just want to point that out and have a word from you here about your wife, because, you know, like you've been through a couple of rough relationships, but
Eh.
but but this relationship, I mean, you couldn't have blamed her for walking, but she didn't go anywhere. She stayed, and boy, I just think to have somebody who's willing to invest in you the way that she did is an incredible gift. And I wonder if you want to say a word about Joni before we wrap this thing up.
Well, she was my saint, and I was so verbally abusive. You know, because what do? We take it out on our closest or loved ones, right? You know, our all that.
Mhm.
So I felt safe, I guess, that she wouldn't walk. And I mean, in my worst days, I said a lot of things that, you know, when I shot myself, I did it in front of her. You know what a crazy act that is. But she comes from a military background. Her family, Air Force, and her father and I were very close. And you know, her parents were the ones that kept saying to Joni, you know what, this isn't Clint.
Yeah.
This is not Clint. He's a sick man, and if you want to come home, we'll support you. But just understand, the way he's acting is not Clint. And you know, she hung in there. I mean, she took some breaks for sure, and she needed to. And you know, she was there for me. I always show a picture when I'm public speaking, and it's her and I on a cliff overlooking Lake Tahoe. That's where we got married, on that cliff.
Yeah.
And she was my fourth wife. So I said, we got married on that cliff because I might jump.
So who led the wedding rehearsal? You were the officiant because you probably had more experience.
Yeah.
See, no, I throw it back at you.
Well, Clint, we just can't thank you enough for spending the time with us. This has been a thrill for us and a real honor to have you here. We're so happy that you're in this place in your life, and even more so that you're changing lives, man. You're changing lives by being vulnerable, by putting yourself out there, by sharing your story. And we know people's lives have changed, and many, I'm sure, have returned to wholeness and better journeys because of your work. So thanks so much.
Well, my pleasure. This has been one of the most unique and fun podcasts I've done, and I've done a lot.
Oh,
that's great.
And listen, I love your studio too, by the way, with the saddles and the gear, the bit and bridles back there and the whole bit. So you're looking fantastic.
This is my tack room, and it's also my office, and right next door in the barn, that's my gym. I spend all day outside. It's part of who I am in my recovery, and I hate being indoors.
Oh, I bet. Now you said you've got you got a project in the hopper, a podcast coming up.
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's going to be.
Tell us about it.
Well, Warriors Unmasked. There's another gentleman, Chuck Thus. He was a goalie, played professionally. And somehow we got connected to an old goalie coach, Mitch Korn, who we both knew. And Chuck had been trying to, I guess, he wanted to talk to me because he read my book and he could relate to a lot of it, and being a goalie as well. So it took him 2 years to get Mitch to say, Mitch said, no, call Clint. He'll talk, ever since then. And that was probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago. And we talk on the phone every day. He's a Christian like me.
Yeah.
So our podcast is going to be on resilience, courage, taking that mask off and getting help, and perseverance, all those things that and directed towards mental health and helping people.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Check it out,
That's
folks.
great. Good.
Nice.
Clint Malaruchuk's been our guest today. The book is, get Kevin to hold it up again if you've got it there.
There we are.
Is right there, The Crazy Game. We certainly encourage you to go grab that. And
Has
we'll
a
be forward to
different
the
title in
podcast.
America for some. What's the title in
Oh, does it?
America? Yeah.
Yes, it does, because it was a different publisher in the U.S. when they
Oh.
picked it up, and they didn't like the word "crazy" on the title, and I didn't at first either, because I thought we're trying to fight that stigma of being crazy, but they said, how many times you say you thought you were crazy in the book? And I thought, I'd have mentioned it.
Yeah.
So they called it in the States, they called it A Matter of Inches. And I don't like that title. It sounds like a porn.
Well, it's a good job you said it.
That's right. That's right. That's a
We're gonna have to
perfect way,
fix-
that's a
we're gonna have
perfect
to
way to
fix
end
Ian.
this podcast. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks again for being with us. Just before we let you go, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. We got a few that really help us out and keep our podcast on the air. To A. Miller George Funeral Home, Dave Mullen, the gang there, we thank you for supporting us. To Hyde Park Care Pharmacy here in London, and to Molly Maid here in London as well. Thanks for being here. And Clint, we wish you all the best. Okay.
Give me the number of that funeral home.
Yeah.
Oh, we can set you up, man. Yeah, we know
Well,
a guy. Yeah.
Each life is celebrated there.
I'm like a cat. I got 9 lives. But I think I'm
You're not
running off.
you're not a good client for a funeral home, Clint.
No, no good. No good.
Yeah.
Well, you take care, and we wish you all the best, Clint. All right.
Thanks
guys are
so
awesome.
much.
And
guys
we'll
are
wrap,
What's this sign off, Rob?
we'll wrap it up by me reminding Kevin to always look both ways.
Before you cross the street.
Thank you for listening. Our hosts are Kevin George and Rob Henderson. Our producer and composer is myself, Ian, with original artwork done by Elizabeth Dodman. If you have any questions or want to know where to find us, tweet us at Vicars Crossing or find us on Facebook at The Vicars Crossing. If you have any other questions about anything heard on this podcast, leave us a comment or look in the description to find out more. Thanks!